Welcome to our series, which marks the 143rd anniversary of the first Girmitias arriving in Fiji. In this series, we will hear from renowned Girmit historians and creative artists. In this episode, we will be hearing from Dr. Primnath Gooptar on Trinidad's Girmit experience. Dr. Gooptar is a writer, biographer, social worker, cultural promoter, former school principal, and lecturer in Indian cinema at the University of West Indies. He has presented several papers on the Indian indentureship experience at conferences in countries such as Trinidad, Guyana, Suriname, Mauritius, St. Vincent, and India. He is the author of 14 books. And Dr. Gooptar holds a PhD in cultural studies from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Let us now hear from Dr. Gooptar on Trinidad's indenture experience.
Namaste and welcome to this very special session of Girmitia on indentureship in Trinidad and Tobago. Today I'll be talking about how Indian movies impacted on the identity of East Indians in Trinidad and Tobago. I'll be looking at what the East Indians brought when they came, Indian culture up to the 1935 period in Trinidad and Tobago, the introduction of Indian movies in Trinidad, how Indian movies impacted on the traditions that were brought in Trinidad, and conclusion. So East Indians arrived in Trinidad in 1845 as part of the British government's indentureship scheme to supply cheap labor to the colony's sugar and cocoa plantations after the abolition of slavery. And during the period of indentureship scheme, over 147,000 Indians were indentured to work in Trinidad. After their period of service ended, mostly 80% of them decided to remain in Trinidad, to set their bucket down in Trinidad, as we say. Today, their descendants form 40% of the population of the country, and most live comfortably here. They have retained some aspects of their traditional culture and have created new forms of it that mark their presence in the country. So I'll be looking at, in this particular session, I'm looking at songs and music, the dances and the dress from Indian movies and how these impacted on the culture of the East Indians in Trinidad and how it helped to form their identity. So East Indian movies have influenced almost every area of East Indian life or traditions in Trinidad during the last 87 years. So, and what were the main symbols of Indian cultural identity in Trinidad leading up to the 1935? What did they bring with them? They brought with them their songs. The songs included the Biraha songs, the Chautal songs, the bhajans, the qasidas, their own compositions. They also brought a special type of classical songs called the Tumri, the ghazals, the drupads, the tarana, the khayal, and these also became popular in Trinidad over the years. They brought their dances with them, but not dances as we don't know them today, the Bollywood dances. They were more plays rather than dances, the Raja Harishchandra dance, the Sawarani dance, Garba dance, Jaharu dance, Indra Sabha, Rahas Mandal dance, Ahiyu dance, and the Prahalad dance, among others. This here is a picture of Siv Gusain, a local Indra Sabha player from Trinidad who recently passed away. Among the musical instruments they brought were the dholak, tabla, the harmonium, the sitar, the bulbul, the chanj, the mandolin, the majira, the tassa, the sarod, pasuri, the sarangi, the veena, the santur. And here we see a picture of the sitar, the harmonium, the tassa with the chanj, the tabla, and so on. They brought their clothing with them, the dress, which included their dhoti, their kurta, the pagri, the gangri, which is a long dress worn by the early indented women, the jula, which is a long, loosely fitting blouse, the orani, and the jamajora, which were worn by the bride and bridegrooms. The sari and an outer dress worn primarily by Hindu women, consisting of several yards of light material that is draped gracefully around the body, the choli and the sapat, among other things. They brought with them their jewelry and their makeup, the sindoor, kajal, bindi, bera, churia, gungurus, kanpul, nakpul, and so on. They brought their artifacts with them, such as the goglet, the dheki, chulha, simta, jata, tawa, sil, and lora. The Ukrian musar, the jaru, pira, ajupa, kulu, luta, and taria. Here we see a picture of a chulha. They brought with them also their religions, which included Hinduism, Islam, and Buddhism. Among their religious practices, they used such items such as the Hawan Kund, the Chandan, Jandi, Bedi, Mehendi, Maro, Muritis, Lingam, Tulsi. Their religious books included the Ramayana, Quran, Bhagavad Puran, Bhagavad Gita, Bible. Their religious practices included the festivals such as Diwali, Pagwa, Ramlila, Shivratri, Idul Fitr, and Idul Adha. And they practiced most all of these things, particularly their religious doctrines, even while they were in the field. As J.H. Collins in A Guide to Trinidad notes, it is nevertheless astonishing how familiar the Trinidadian coolies are of their scriptures. Even among the humble laborers who till the fields, you may often, in the evening work being done, see and hear a group of coolies crouching down in a semicircle chanting whole stanzas of the epic poem Ramayana. So it means that they, even during their times in the field, during lunchtime, during the break periods, when they sat together, they chanted their religious scriptures, their bhajans, their songs, etc. And that is how they also kept their culture and their religion alive. They also brought their social religious practices such as arranged marriages, the panchayat system, their monthly kathas. And when they read from their holy books, especially the Ramayana, they were reminded about places in India that they had heard about. Some of them knew about these places: Ayodhya, Kiskinda, Chitrakoot, Himalayas, Ganga, Kashi, Vrindavan, and these served as identity symbols for them. After indentureship, they settled down in Trinidad and largely lost touch with India. They kept their culture and religion alive and developed local Indian classical singing among other things. So after indentureship, they remained in Trinidad, 80% of them, and they settled here and they blended in with the community in the society that they had now adopted as their own home. But by the 1930s, Indian culture had reached a stasis because of the forces, the westernized forces. Nothing new was added to their culture. They tried to keep everything as in a box. They tried to protect it. And so there was very little creativity. And although they propagated their culture, among them the classical singing and so on, most of the young people found those songs and dances boring, and much of the folk traditions began to decline by the 1930s. Cinema had come to Trinidad in 1900, but the majority of Indians did not attend cinema because the movies were in English, they did not understand English, and they did not like the values and so on. And exhibiting an Indian movie in Trinidad was risky business. But then entered Ranjit Kumar and Said Mohammed Hussain in 1935, when Ranjit Kumar brought Bala Joban to Trinidad in company with his friend Said Mohammed Hussain. The movie was first shown on 3rd December 1935 at a Globe Cinema in Port of Spain, then at Gaiety and other places. The response by the local Indians was phenomenal. The movie was well advertised, and people who came to watch the movies, they traveled like buses, trucks, carts, cars, trains, bicycles. Every show was sold out. They were seeing for the first time, they were seeing a slice of India that was coming to them in Trinidad. Bala Joban represented India to them. To see the Bala Joban was to see India, to know India. Bala Joban represented the India of the imagination. The idea, and that idea permeated other Indian movies that followed. They had been cut off from India for so long that this slice of India was like the missing link that came to them in Trinidad. And they went hook, line, and sinker into it. It reignited images and linkages with India. And they saw India in the cinema. They went to, at every Indian movie came, it became an identity symbol for them, an identity thing to go and see an Indian movie. Bala Joban was a great success. It was a new kind of music. They were seeing for the first time people like themselves on the screen, successful, achieving, educated. They saw everyday arts and artifacts on the screen, things that they knew here, they were seeing it for the first time on the screen. They identified with weddings, ceremonies, horoscopes, child naming, arranged marriages, the jata, denki, the sari, the orani. When they saw these things on the film, on the screen, it was like an identity thing for them. It was an aha experience. We have that here too. Bala Joban and other Indian movies changed East Indian culturality. They fell hook, line, and sinker for the songs, music, and dances from Indian movies and made it part of their everyday life. The celluloid Indian culture took precedence over many areas of their traditional life. So what happened here is that during that period of time, they took to the songs because the songs was very rhythmic. It was very beautiful. They loved the songs and the music and the dances in the movie, and they took to it. And then over the last 87 years, Indian movies have had an unbroken presence in Trinidad. So even now, they're still, even though most of the cinemas are gone, they're still able to access Indian movies through the internet, through television, and through other places. But also, what was the impact of the Indian movies on classical singing, dance, Diwali, Bhagwan songs, and so on? People prefer to listen to the filmy songs because they were more catchy, they were more rhythmic. Some classical singers sang filmy songs and included the filmy beat in their classical singing. Regarding the dance dramas, Indian orchestras largely replaced dance dramas at weddings and other functions. Players included filmy songs in their plays. Filmy dances replaced the dramas and became part of the Indian orchestra presentations, Indian weddings. Diwali. Diwali bhajans became an important part of life for East Indians in Trinidad, and all public shows, there were lots of bhajans, and these bhajans were largely bhajans from films such as Mati Mamata, Argentere, Hey Mahalakshmi Ma, and so on. So in public Diwali programs, mainly film songs, but non-religious songs were played also. Orchestras began with only a few film songs and dances to follow the same trend. Ram Leela, there were a lot of film dances and film songs that were used in Ram Leela in Trinidad. In Pagua, we found that a lot of the songs and that were used in Pagua came directly from the film songs. And even in local Pichikari competitions, where they composed local songs, they took the melodies from the film songs. Weddings, orchestras, and filmy dances largely replaced the classical singing and dance dramas at Hindu weddings. The mic men also replaced classical singing and the dramas in the cooking nights when orchestras could not be hired. And the mic men played only film songs from movies, songs by Mohammed Rafi, Lata Mangeshkar, and so on. The religious ceremonies and pujas, filmy bhajans and dances were held. In Ramayana Yagnas, filmy dances was the operation of the day. And even the chaupais from the Ramayana was sung using film songs. And even some kasidas were sung using film songs. Religious ceremonies in the Bhagavad Yagnas and so on, they use the film songs again. Filmic kasidas, filmy influenced melodies, kawalis, and film songs. Then the clothing, they began to pattern themselves from what they saw in the films, They're wearing the Sari in particular styles that they saw in the film Salwar, the Gooptar, wedding outfits. They began to buy wedding outfits based on what they saw in Indian movies, wearing of an Indian outfit at public Indian functions, and they also wore filmy outfits as seen in Indian movies. The songs, from imitating the songs to remakes with local rhythms, they were imitating the songs that they saw in Indian movies, they heard in these Indian movies. They used the film and movies in the creation of new songs, which became known as chutney, and these songs used the melodies of the Indian films. The dances, they were imitating the dances, and from imitating the dances, they began to use the songs to create local, to choreograph the dances of their own in Trinidad. The filmy music was catchy, rhythmic, and melodious, and that's why it had such an impact. It created linkages with India. The film songs, music, and dances were seen as representing Indian culture. They latched onto filmy elements rather than Western elements, and it gave them their identity. Largely Indian, anything Indian was important to them as it helped them with preserving their identity in Trinidad. East Indian identity and the national culture of Trinidad and Tobago, therefore, it was important, therefore, to understand that in Trinidad and Tobago, the East Indians were faced with a lot of westernization, and they retreated into a kind of cocoon where they practiced their culture, their religion, the songs, their music, their dances. But eventually, they came back out and made these things national, part of the culture of Trinidad and Tobago. And today, much of it is accepted throughout the country as part of the national culture of Trinidad and Tobago. The evidence suggests that Indian films have influenced the evolution of Indian culture in Trinidad and Tobago, and the identity of East Indians, and ultimately the culture of Trinidad and Tobago. I want to say thanks to Radio and Television APNA for this opportunity to present a short talk on how Indian movies have impacted on national culture and the identity of East Indians in Trinidad and Tobago. A special thanks to Farzana for asking me to participate in this very important event of educating the world about the various communities across the globe, and in particular about Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much.